Hello, and welcome to our webinar on values-based parent training. I'm Amy Cook, BCBA and Community Manager from H Rasmus, and I want to go over a few things before we get started. First, you will all be eligible to earn one free CEU if you are watching this live and complete a few requirements. We are going to share 3 keywords throughout the webinar that you will need to jot down. After the webinar, I will share an online form to complete, and you will type in the 3 keywords to confirm your participation. A recording will be sent out to all registrants. However, only live participants are eligible to earn the CEU. Okay, I'm going to give out the first CEU. So hopefully you have paper or text on your phone somewhere where you can go ahead and put in. The first keyword is chosen. And I will also put that in the chat in a moment. So before I hand it over to our fabulous guest speaker, I want to share a little bit more about H Rasmus. H Rasmus is an online ABA clinical software company that was inspired by our founder's son, Rasmus, who was diagnosed with autism early on in his life. Our goal is to help deliver the highest quality behavioral therapy services to 1 million children with autism by helping the people who help them: behavior analysts, techs, teachers, parents, and clinical directors. We provide the best clinical platform so you can keep the focus on the child in front of you. Our team wanted to help ABA professionals increase family engagement, and knew Leanne would be the perfect guest speaker. With that said, I will let Leanne introduce herself and get us started.
Thank you so much for having me. I am loving seeing where everybody's from. I just think that's so cool for working online that we get to see so many people from all over the world. That's not something we get to do. My name is Leanne Page. Like Amy said, I'm located in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. So a little bit about me, who's talking to you today. I started as a special ed teacher, became a BCBA, a while ago, and an ACE provider, meaning I teach continuing education as a big part of my job, which I love. I do parent coaching. I did work clinically. I managed an ABA center for several years, but now I don't do the insurance stuff. I do parent coaching. And you might recognize either of my books down here at the bottom: Parenting with Science and Enjoy Parenting. Parenting with Science, I call the little book that could. It's 9 years old and has been pretty popular with a lot of BCBAs in sharing that with their families. My purpose really with Parenting with ABA started as taking our science of behavior and breaking it down and making it accessible to parents. And now it's also shifted to helping behavior analysts do the same thing, get through to parents, really do parent training, incorporate ACT in your parent training. That's kind of where we're going today, um, talking about values-based parent training. So our objectives today are here on the screen. And before we jump in, I like to start all my CEs with a little present moment practice. If you're familiar with ACT, acceptance and commitment training, that's one of the 6 pillars, but really it helps me to quiet down all the distractions and the to-dos and the shoulds of our busy lives and focus on what we're doing today. So real quick, if you're driving, maybe do your own version of this. If you would just look around where you are right now and find 5 colors in your immediate environment. If you're at your desk at work or at home, you probably see the same things every day, but notice 5 colors. That's it. I sit in front of a window, so I kind of cheat. There's lots of pretty colors outside. If anyone wants to share in the chat if you noticed anything different, or if just pausing to notice 5 colors, it slowed down my breathing. Did anything come up for you? Just doing a quick 30-second notice 5 colors around you. I also noticed that someone left a tiny sock on my desk. Thank you, children. I'm working from home. Well, today's objectives, we have blue, black, yellow, silver, and green are the colors you noticed. Something as little as 30 seconds of grounding, bringing ourselves to where we are right now can make a huge difference. That's also how I start all my parent coaching sessions with something different. It doesn't always have to be 5 colors, but something to just notice your breathing, notice where you are, and push your feet into the floor, anything like that. One of my favorite exercises, love starting parent sessions this way, is what someone says, yes. Our objectives today are, what are values? How can we define that as BCBAs? And then really look at activities to help you clarify values. The handouts link Amy just put in the chat has a bajillion activities, and we're going to go through that. And then think about ways that we can use these in your current parent training with families you support. What are values? I'm going to ask you at the end these questions. Here's your cheater way to be ready for that. How will you help your families clarify their values? What are you gonna do with this information? I don't want CEs to just be passive, sit here, get our credit and move on with our lives and not do anything about it. Take these handouts, print them out, do something with it. Any other ideas for these values exercises or others? And then thinking about your parent training goals, the ones you're actually working on with families right now. Do they align with the family's values? How can you know? And what will you do about this? I'm going to ask you at the end. So, what are values? Values are the qualities that are meaningful and important to you in a way that is basic to who you are. Meaningful and important to you that is basic to who you are. B.F. Skinner described behavior analysis as the field of values and purpose. Our roots in ABA are about making things better, alleviating suffering, value, and purpose. I love this quote from Stephen Hayes. If we don't decide where we are going, we're bound to end up where we're headed. Think about that for just a second. If we don't decide where we are going, we're bound to end up where we are headed. Where are you headed with your parent training sessions? Values defined. We are going to dig into this definition. It's long. I am going to read it off the screen. Bear with me for a second and read along. It comes from an article by Wilson and Dufresne, 2009. Values are freely chosen, verbally constructed consequences of ongoing, dynamic, evolving patterns of activity, which establish predominant reinforcers for that activity that are intrinsic in engagement in the valued behavior pattern itself. Clear as mud, right? Totally, totally clear. Everybody got that? All right, we're done here. That is very technical. Let's take a minute to kind of dig through that. We're going to go through the different pieces of it. So some sample values, these specific ones are in your handouts, part of the values card sort. Just what are values? They're qualities of being. These are big kind of broad general words on the screen in front of you. Acceptance, excitement, challenge, fitness, hope, humor, fun, independence. They're all good things, right? Your values are what you are about and what you stand for. When I was first learning about values, I was interviewing another BCBA mom, and we were talking about being BCBA moms, specifically about parenthood in our own families. And the way she speaks is very calm and peaceful. And her background in our house was all plants and beautiful. And it just was a very calm, lovely time. And she talked about how calm, peace, quiet, these are all values for her family. And I was sitting there, I was learning about values. I was still a new mom. My kids were really young. And I was thinking, yes, I want more calm. I want more peace. That's not my house. That's not even how I'm talking to you right now. Calm, quiet, and peaceful is not who the Page family is. That's not us. And that's okay. My values are not going to be calm and quiet because that does not fit our behavior. That does not fit our family. Our family is real big on welcoming and hospitality. My house is often full of people. This other woman that I was talking to, that would give her a heart attack. She does not want hospitality and loud and all of that. That doesn't fit her. So which one of us is right and which one of us is wrong? It's all about you and what your family stands for. But I want to make this point before we even get into the definition, and it's not what we want. It's who we are. It's who we are. We're here today talking about values-based parent training. But guess what? You have to start with yourself. So in the chat, I would love to know, as we keep going with our definition, have you ever clarified your own values? Just type yes or no. Yes, I've done this before for myself. Yay, look at all these yeses. Yay for the no's too, because I want you to do this. I want you to experience this. And I see some familiar faces or names. I can think of your faces from our Parenting the ABA continuing education group. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, awesome. You guys are doing it right with all these yeses. Anytime you learn anything about ACT, values is just one little piece of that. We have to practice on ourselves first. So let's get into the definition, then we'll come back to kind of the exercises and things. The very first phrase of this long, jargony, technical definition is freely chosen. Just like the example, this other mom can choose peace and calm, and I can choose hospitality or welcoming or community. There's all different words that kind of mean the same thing. I think community is the one my husband and I agreed on that summed up our loud environment. Freely chosen. Every family is different. Each one of us is different. It thankfully incorporates self-direction and autonomy and choice and all of these things. I'm going to go ahead and guess that you're good at doing with the kids that you serve. You're good at self-management, thinking about independence. But what about with grown-ups? What about with the caregivers? How can we, in coming up with parent training goals, incorporate more autonomy, choice? We're not even here talking about trauma-informed care, but the word choice is a huge part of that, giving people more choice over their own direction. How can we do that more with caregivers? So values defined, continuing going on, are consequences and established predominant reinforcers. They aren't reinforcers, but valued, engaging in behaviors aligned with your value is reinforcing. So using my example of hospitality versus calm, or loud community life versus calm, it is reinforcing to me to have a house full of kids, to have a car full of kids. My carpool yesterday, I had 6 children in the car, and people at the camp pickup I was doing were like, "Where are you going to put all those kids?" I'm like, "I got this." I love having 6 kids and the loudness and how silly they were. If we have a weekend evening and it's just the 4 of us and my family eating dinner, my kids are like, "Who's coming over? What are we doing?" Yeah, someone says I need a bigger car soon. We're all gonna be driving vans. Um, I like that. It is happy and fun for me. However, this other BCBA mom I was talking with who does not value that, that would not be reinforcing for her. That's not her thing. That's not her family's thing. Your values are reinforcing to you. When someone says, this is a quote from an article, Plum et al. 2009. When someone says that he or she values someone or something, that statement refers to the effectiveness of that person or thing as a reinforcer for their behavior. All the exercises we're going to go through today are verbal behavior. They're talking about our values, they're writing it down, but we have to see if our actions match. So, with the families you support, it's about looking, what are those actions showing me that they value? What are they showing me that they value? Another quote from Tarbox, Sabo, and a clown in 2020. This article is fantastic. It's now I can't think of the right title, but it's about ACT being in your scope of practice versus scope of competence. So they define values as rules that function as verbal MOs that increase or decrease the effectiveness of stimuli as reinforcers or punishers, thereby supporting overt behavior that produce those stimuli. Again, we get a little jargony in these quotes, right? But they increase or decrease the effectiveness of those things as reinforcers. Values are not just these woo woo, pie in the sky, big picture ideas that sound good. Okay. This can be concrete. We're looking at reinforcers of behaviors. Values are a learned experience and they can shift over time. We have to look at reinforcement histories of the families that we're supporting and the caregivers that we're supporting. What works for each person? What is reinforcing for each family? I know for myself as a parent coach, it's important for me to be able to recognize what my values are first and then set those off to the side. Recognize that's my own perspective, right? That's my own bias. What is this family over here? What's important to them? We're not all the same. A simple, concrete example of that might be with sleeping. I do not want my children in my bed. I'm not a good sleeper. I'm a light sleeper. I am cranky if I don't get enough sleep. Ugh, so is my daughter. She's too much like me. Um, I don't want them in my bed. But what about this family I support? They might let their kids sleep in the they might do like the family bed sharing situation. It could be a cultural thing for different families. It could just be a personal preference. They don't mind it. They like it. Um, that's looking at different values, but also looking at just different behaviors and that's my bias. Oh, they don't want a goal of kids sleeping in their own bed through the night. Why is that there? Because I thought it was a good idea. What works best for each person? What do they care about? Um, do you have any examples of that you can think of that you've encountered? Thinking about the value of quiet versus loud community life, or thinking about, well, I thought it was this way, but this other family showed me from bed sharing to independent sleeping. Have you encountered any differences like that? Feel free to type in the chat. Looking at our definition, values are intrinsic. Using utensils at mealtime has come up. Somebody says, oh, that's interesting too. Something you just think, oh, that's an activity of daily living. I need to teach them how to use this fork correctly, but maybe the family eats the types of food with their hands differently or a different type of utensil. That's really interesting because if we just stick with our assessments, well, the VB map says I should teach this way or that. Okay, but what does the family value? What's going on for this family? What is intrinsic in engagement? Values has been described as living vitally. What is most vital to you? What does vital even mean? Vital means necessary to existence, necessary to the continuance or well being of something, essential, indispensable. There's a whole bunch of examples coming through. Clean home. Yes, so the BCBA really valuing clean and tidy, and the family not really concerned about that. So if you're spending all your time teaching a kid how to clean up after themselves, and the parents are like, no, I need them to do something else entirely to better fit with our value as a family, that's what we're talking about, figuring out that alignment, making their bed in the morning, family sleeping bed. We're all on the bed sleeping. We're a sleepy group today. Mainstream psychology, there's a quote, discrepancies between conceived values, so verbal expressions of preference, and operative values, your actual behavior, is the cause of much human suffering. I want to be this way and I'm not. I've fallen short yet again. That is the cause of much human suffering. Behavior analysis says values may be conceptualized as particular kinds of rules that can establish neutral stimuli as reinforcers or temporarily increase the reinforcing quality of already established reinforcers. The non-ABA quotes are way easier to understand, so those are included to help you communicate with families. But all we do have these technical ABA articles and published studies to support all of this. That's why I really want you to notice regular bedtimes, where you eat, using certain dishes. There are so many specific routines, traditions, um, habits that each family has differently. Starting more globally with these values helps us to kind of zone in on those specific things and make sure that what we are working on with families aligns with the big picture stuff. It all goes together. Um, some of these ABA quotes say values are types of rules. That was just that very last slide. Values may be conceptualized as a particular kind of rule. And now I'm going to tell you that they're not rules. You're welcome. This is very, very clear and easy to understand. Why are they not rules? The cause of human suffering are these statements right here. I have to live by my values every day. I must live my values. I should live my values. Should, have to, must, ought, right, wrong, yes or no, black or white. I have to reach this super high level of achievement in my values or I'm not good enough. That's the cause of much human suffering, according to that Carl Rogers quote a couple slides ago. We choose to live into our values. We choose to focus on those. And when we fall short, we get to choose again. The suffering comes when the rules don't accurately describe the environment. That's wonderful. Jonathan said that in the quote in the chat. Everything with ACT, acceptance and commitment training, is about flexibility, right? So, as we're talking about values, I really want you to remember to avoid rigidity, making sure that the rules accurately describe the environment, that everything is aligned, and we're not putting more pressure on the parents we support because this whole mom guilt idea is very real. And these parents we support, there's all kinds of data about parents of kids with disabilities having higher levels of burnout and things like that. Talking about values cannot be another should. It can be a wonderful thing about a direction. Let's make sure what we're working on is moving us in the right direction. This is my favorite way to explain values to families I support, in that values are directions, like on a compass. Let's pretend I value East. That is it. That is what I want out of my life. That is what I try to live. I do my best. I fall short. I try again. I can go East. I can walk East. I can take a train East. I can fly East. I can kayak in the Eastern direction. Any of those behaviors, as long as I'm moving in the Eastern way, Northeast, Southeast, just kind of sort of going East, I will have those reinforcing feelings. Life will feel good. It will feel meaningful. Am I ever going to be East? Can I say, I did it, I made it, I'm East, check? No. What if there's a mountain over there to the east? Then my goal is going to be to climb that mountain. When I hit that summit, that's when I can check off the box and say, I climbed this mountain to the east. The climbing is reinforcing because I'm moving in the right direction that I have chosen. Summiting the mountain, however, is achieving a goal. I can check that off. Values we can't check off. I'm not going to achieve east. I'm just going to keep circling the globe. Those committed actions, the climbing of the mountain, the kayaking on the river, the taking the train, the bus, the taxi, the bicycle, those are the actions. Those are the behaviors. Have you guys used the compass or direction metaphor with families before? Yes, no, but I love it. No, but I think it's great. Um, I have some more examples for you. I do hope you take from this. Oh, I can say it the way she said it if you're new to this. I want to make it easy to you. Our second code word, I put it right here because I knew I was going to forget, is direction. I knew I would forget our code word. Your second code word is the word direction. This quote comes from the book, A Liberated Mind. Values are always in the now. Goals are in the future until they're achieved, and then they're quickly in the past. Values are now. So goals versus values. We're good at goals. I'm going to go ahead and say you're all good at goals. You're behavior analysts, you know how to write a SMART goal. You're probably better at writing goals that get funded since I've been out of the insurance game for a while. Goals are time bound, they're measurable. These are all our SMART acronyms. They have an endpoint, it's a destination, that's that top of the mountain. Reinforcement is quick at the end. I achieved that. Values are harder for us as BCBAs in general. I'm going to generalize to all of us because they're global, because they're fluid, because they just are. That's not concrete. I can't check that off as a plus or a minus on a data sheet. They just are. Okay, this is another way to explain values. This one is not a good fit for me. I live in Dallas, Texas. I do not go snow skiing. This would work for my husband. He likes to ski. So this is just giving you lots of examples of ways to explain it. But snow skiing, why do people go skiing? Are they doing it to get to the bottom of the mountain? I can think of easier ways to get to the bottom of a mountain. It's called staying at the bottom of the mountain and not going up the ski lift. Is it all about being at the bottom of the mountain? Do they go on these big ski trips just to be at the bottom of the mountain? I probably would next time my family goes on one. But why do people go skiing? It's not just to be at the bottom of the mountain. It's the joy and the experience of the process. The fun of it is something that they value, that they care about. Oh, Amy's comment is this would be perfect for Rasmus because he loves skiing. See, I know it would fit somebody. That's perfect.
And he was the inspiration for H Rasmus. That's our
Yes.
founder's son with autism. But yeah, he brings him a lot of joy. That's why they moved to Denver. It was because of that value. So
And if you've seen pictures of him skiing, if this is something he does, you can probably picture his face of joy, right? That's his value. That's
absolutely.
feeling you get. You can see it on their face. Just another way to describe it. We're not trying to achieve something. Um, there's a quote from Helen Keller. I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish small tasks as if they were great and noble. That process, the way down the mountain, the kayaking to the, I don't know why kayaking's on my mind this morning, kayaking in the eastern direction, those little committed actions, those steps that we take in that direction are what we feel good about. That's what's reinforcing to us. That's what makes life more meaningful. So each family gets to choose what's meaningful to them. What do you want life in your home to be about? You get to choose what's meaningful. There are no wrong values. And I say that with the caveat of obviously, if you think murder is a value, we have a problem. But if we stick to our values list, there are no wrong values. And what's meaningful for your family is not going to be the same as what's meaningful for my family. I say these exact words to my parent coaching clients. There's no wrong answer. And when you look through the values list, and we'll look through the values card sort, I have my stack of cards right here so we can kind of flip through. They're all good things. I want all of them, but you get to choose what matters the most. Here's that list of sample values again, just to kind of keep on your mind. Choose what's meaningful. I would be willing to guess that a lot of the families that we support feel like they're on autopilot. They are putting out fires constantly. They're dealing with problem behavior. That's why we're there, right? That's how we got hired to show up. It's hard to stop and pick your direction. It's hard for any of us to stop and choose what's meaningful. That's what we're talking about today. So, this first, we're going to jump into our applied part of this presentation. That was values defined in a nutshell from a few different ABA resources. Now, how can we do this? Again, if you have not done any of these, even if you're like, yes, I've clarified my values, but I've never done the magic wand question, think through your own answers to this before you ask a family to do it. All right. The magic wand question. This is a favorite among our Parenting with ABA continuing education group. Um, some of our group members have shared they do it at intake, whether verbally, like just ask these questions out loud to a family, or in written form, like in paperwork that families do at intake. This is the whole thing. It's right here on your screen. It is not difficult to do. I'm not asking you to do a 30-page assessment. Okay. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be little ways to just try to figure out how to better align what we're doing with what this family cares about. That's it. That's the whole thing. How do we better align what we're doing with what fits this family? In the chat says how important it is that there are no wrong values. Many therapists insist that they know better. And there's no cooperation for the common good of the child. Absolutely. I have seen that as well. And when we rely too heavily on assessments and just doing the same by the book goals and objectives for every single child, that's where you're going to see more of that instead of slowing down, asking things like this right here. Suppose I had a magic wand and I wave this wand, and all the thoughts and feelings you've been struggling with are no longer a problem for you. They're like, oops, sorry. They're like water off a duck's back. What would you then do differently? What sort of things would you start doing or perhaps do more of? How would you behave differently toward others? What would you do differently at work, at home, on the weekends? You can take this direct quote or shrink it down. Suppose I had a magic wand and this specific behavior problem, these tantrums go away. What would you do differently? What if these families you support didn't have to spend 10 hours a week in ABA therapy or more? What would they do with their time? Suppose I had a magic wand and all these issues with, what do we talk about up here? Eating and sleeping and um, that's really it. Eating and sleeping are parents' biggest issues with eating and sleeping, and independent skills were gone and we weren't working on these things anymore. What would you do differently? Amy says, I worked with a family that just wanted to have a picnic at the pond, but it was a safety concern. What if all you were working on with that family was like matching the letter A to another letter A? Can your child touch something that's red? Have you ever had parents respond poorly to this question? Yes. Yes, because what if no one's ever asked them that? This could be sad. I wish I was at the pond, but I'm not. I'm here in this clinic for 20 hours a week. Recognizing that therapeutic relationship, that's a whole other conversation. We have a whole CE on it in from Parenting with ABA. Recognizing when you can ask this or not. One way I do like is having something like this written and they can answer it or not. The face-to-face, like, tell me what you value right in their face is uncomfortable. And so that's why I'm giving you a whole bunch of different exercises and you can pick and choose what works best for each family. Right now in my brain, I can picture the mom that I can have an hour-long conversation about this with, easy peasy. We can talk about her dreams and her feelings, and it's going to be a hopeful conversation. And I can think of another mom that I've supported in parent coaching that I wouldn't touch this question because it would just be sad for her. I would pick a different exercise. Someone said, I wish my son would say, Daddy, let's go to the playground instead of making Daddy ride the elevator in the mall for hours. Well, the elevator is his playground right now, huh? But that's good to know, right? We don't know what these families are dealing with. This is another version that's a little bit easier to palate. What are 3 wishes you have for your child? To go to the playground. The one for the family would be where we put the bond, and 3 wishes for yourself. So what are 3 wishes? You could add this, I have a magic wand and I can grant you 3 wishes. What are 3 wishes you have for your child? This would be another good one to incorporate into intake, starting out a relationship, and then to revisit every so often. Your 3 wishes you had for your child 6 months ago, I hope are a little bit different. I hope we've made enough progress that you could change it. The way this is published, when I first saw it, had number 2 and 3 flipped. 3 wishes for your child, yourself, and your family. But from working with parents so much, and especially moms specifically, 3 wishes for yourself is really hard to answer sometimes, especially parents of kids with higher needs. For me, I don't get wishes for myself. That can be a hard one too. 3 wishes for your child, even if you just stop there. Think of the information you would have. Oh my gosh, I wish for my child to get invited to a birthday party someday. Okay, what are we working on for social skills? What are we working on for? Are we just working on like pre academics? Okay, we need to change that up a little bit. I wish I could sit and drink coffee. Okay, do we have any goals about independent activities for this kid to do so mom can have coffee for a minute? Does mom know how to have boundaries and set up play invitations and all kinds of different things? There are so many skills under that one statement. I wish I could sit and drink coffee. I wish I could get a babysitter and leave my house. Do you know what your families would say to this question? And someone in the chat a minute ago said it's all about implicit bias too. 3 wishes for your family. I wish for my family to sit and eat at the table every night together. Or I wish for my family to be able to go on vacation. Or I wish there's things that I know I wish, but somebody else might pop out with something like totally different. And I'm like, oh, I would never want to do that. These 3 little questions, this can help me notice my own bias and deal with that on my own, use my own active, like, "Thank you, mind, for reminding me of that bias, and let's move on." Um, but also can inform so much of making sure that your parent training goals align with what a family wants, right? It does not have to be hard. It might sound woo-woo and pie in the sky. I like this exercise. This comes from Stephen Hayes. I'm 90% sure it's in A Liberated Mind, of asking why 3 times. So pick a value that's important. I'm going to use my cards that are right here. These are in your printables. It's like 6 or 7 pages, so you have to like make them. But I don't like that one. I'm cheating. Challenge. I want to be challenged. I don't want that one. Somebody else might. Um, why is being challenged important to you? Because I don't want my brain to go stagnant as a mom dealing with what's going on with these kids right now. Okay, that's one why. Okay, why don't want you want your brain to turn to mush if that's what it feels like? I'm asking why again. Why? Because I'm more than just a mom. I have all this background and training and other things, and I don't want to just be a mom. Okay, why is that important to you? Why does it matter to you? Because it does. Because it's who I am. That's what that third why gets to. Because I care. It helps us realize, I do this with business owners too, with online ABA entrepreneurs is another part of my business. And it's interesting because oftentimes we're like, well, why am I trying so hard? Why am I teaching these CEs and writing books and things? Because I'm in my living room, guys, by myself talking to a computer because it helps people, because it matters. Once we get those 3 whys, that last one is usually like, "Oh, because I care, because it matters, because it brings out that passionate side of us." Um, This conversation helps to build rapport with the family as well. Yes. How many professionals have asked someone, "What do you care about and why?" Think of all the different appointments this family has had. Who's asked them what they care about? Or are they too many appointments that are like, here are all the deficits? Here are all the things you need to work on. This is definitely a huge part of that therapeutic relationship. Caring. First of all, do you even care about their values? And then listening. This is a totally different exercise to figure out your values. How do you want to be remembered? What is truly important to you? If you think about looking back on your life from an advanced age, we're going to say 80 because I'm just picking a number out of the sky. You're 80 years old and you're reflecting back on your life. What do you want to be thinking about? What was your life about? Take a second and answer it in the chat. The next exercise is the same thing and phrased a little bit differently. For you yourself, your 80th birthday party, someone is speaking about you. What are they going to say? When I work with families, I say, your kids are giving you a toast or some other family member. What kind of parent were you? If anybody wants to share in the chat, what do you want people to say about you at your 80th birthday party? Kind to others, that I loved others, open to others. Look at this word other. Mine is always helping others. That word helping comes up for me a lot. It's probably for a lot of us because we're in helping, helpful, supportive. We chose this job. She cared, right? Kind and made a positive difference in the world. Fun, fun, kind. That's what you want to be remembered as. This is also an easy one, loyal, dependable, to do either verbally with a family or written. I have this as a little worksheet that this is the top part, and then there's just a big box. If you can write out, what does your 80th birthday party look like? I was doing this with one mom, and she started crying. And y'all, when a mom starts crying, I cry with them. That's just who I am. She starts crying. And so I start tearing up, not even knowing why either of us are crying. And she said, I'm not being that person right now. I'm not the fun mom. I am not the go with the flow mom. I am rigid and strict and mean. And that's why my kid is acting out. And that's why he doesn't like me and all of these things. We were able to kind of sit with that for a minute and be sad about it and then say, okay, let's start over right now. Who cares? You're not 80 yet. We're not at your birthday party yet. That tells us which direction we need to go. You don't have to stay here. That's the beauty, is that we get all these reset moments. We're all going to stray and we're all going to fall short because we're human beings. So just know that even this that sounds like a happy fun, who's toasting you on your birthday, um, it can be emotional. And it's okay to have emotions. As a behavior analyst, it's okay. Some of these worksheets, they are in your handouts. Amy's dropped the link a couple times in the chat, come from Russ Harris. There is, I think I put the link in your handouts too, the Complete Act worksheets he has available online for free. It is 84 pages. It's a lot of pages. So I pulled a few out to just kind of look through together. I'm looking at time. I'm going to go kind of fast through these to get to the best meaty part. This one is really just about domains. I do like doing this with families, even though obviously we're here for parenting. But what I'll find is that there's no recreation or fun, or maybe there's no community life because what's going on with their child has isolated them and I didn't know that. Or there's no self-care and they wish there was. This is more looking at the parent as a human, as their own person, and what's going on with them. So this is something that can be a quick circle. How do you feel about these things? This list of values comes from Brene Brown. She's not an ACT researcher. She's not an ABA person. That's why I like to include it. Have a little bit outside to think about and learn from. And so, just another list of values to think about as we kind of talk about these next few exercises. Values writing is one that you just pick one of those values that you care about, set a timer for 10 minutes, and write about that value. You can use these questions or just write about that value. Why do I care about this particular thing? Gratitude was one I glanced at from that last one. Why is gratitude important? What do I want to do with this idea of gratitude and being grateful for what I have in my life? What have I seen in my life when others are more grateful? What can I do? When have I violated this and been ungrateful? And what happened? 10 minutes is a long time to write. This is a little more involved to ask a family to do, I think. Um, but I think it's good for us to do. And then if it's helpful to you, then maybe do a condensed version, 2 minutes on one question. Take that one value you were interested in. Courtesy is the word that came up on my stack. Again, that one does not resonate with me. I keep pulling ones that I'm like, meh. Uh, Courtesy, right? For 2 minutes. What does that mean to you? What does that look like? What thoughts does it bring up? How do you want to be? Anything you want to write, 2 minutes. You can break these down. These are all jumping off points. The values card sort. This is what I keep referencing. These little stack of cards, these are in your handouts. You print them out, you cut them out. You sort them into stacks. My husband and I do this every so often because, again, I'm not going to ask a family I support if there's two caregivers and I'm like, here, you guys do this together, and I haven't done it with my husband, then I have some words about that. Um, so the idea with a card sort, you can buy cards. There's a link I also have for you to do an online one, is you sort them into stacks, high, medium, and low priority. These are all good things. There's nothing bad written on these cards. High, medium, and low priority. Then you go high, medium, low, real quick. First thought, this should not take a long time. Then we get rid of the medium and low stack. All right, we've narrowed it down. We're just going to take our high stack and sort them again. They can't all be high. High, medium, low, high, medium, low, high, medium, low. And we keep doing that. Get rid of the medium and low stacks. Take your smaller one and sort them again until we get to a small amount of cards. I say 5. I've let families keep up to 10 because it is hard to do. What has come up repeatedly for me doing this with a family in person at their kitchen table, online, I mail them cards, I cut them and send it to them ahead of time, um, is that the parents might be saying the same thing, like reliable and dependable, but they're kind of arguing about what it means. Like, those kind of mean the same thing. You just have to pick which one resonates with you more. And so that's really interesting to get the two separate caregivers or three, however many people are involved in this kid's life that you're supporting on the same page. I've also had it come up where, like, one parent's like, "This is really high," and the other parent's like, "What? Really?" Like, crazy. In the chat says there's list of values from Atomic Habits. That's James Clear. I'm 90% sure that's the right name. There's examples on YouTube. There is an online card sort. Can you guys see this? That is the same thing. This one has 5 columns. Can everybody see my 5 columns? Will someone tell me in the chat if my tech is working? Um, this is not necessarily for families, but you get the idea. Least important, most important, and it helps you do that. There are other online ones. Amy says, Hi Rasmus platform has some for you, a values list. There you go. And we'll go back to our, oh, what happened to my screen get smaller? I'm going to close that out and come back here. There we go. Lots of different values lists. My favorite activity, if we're going to do an actual activity, is this card sort because it's physical. I like the movement, the stacks, the looking at things. It's less of like, tell me about your hopes and dreams, which can make people uncomfortable, depending on who you're working with. Okay, trying to be mindful of time, you guys. I just really like talking about this. Values Bullseye. This is a real popular one. Are you familiar with the Values Bullseye? Does anybody use it yourself? That's what I would love to know in the chat. The idea here, while you're typing in the chat, is it's almost like a self rating system, a self-monitoring visual reminder of I'm living my full values is the bullseye. Sometimes I'm not, and I get way out here, but you can always move back in. It's not like right or left, right or wrong. If you go the wrong way, you're too far out and you can't self-correct. The beauty of the bullseye is the different domains: leisure, work and education, personal growth, health, relationships. You could make it whatever you wanted. Individualization. You could put each value. You could make one about leisure for parents or self care, communicating with your kids, communicating with your partner, family routines. It could be anything that is their own domains. I've used it with kids, is what someone in the chat says, not as much as the matrix, but we have used it. It's a nice visual, and there's some pretty ones from Paradigm Behavior. I just think they're pretty, so it makes me use them more often. For a long time, I had this one over here printed and in a frame on my desk. Right now, I change it out because we know visuals just kind of start blending into the background, right? Um, Now I have a pretty hexaflex right there. But as a reminder, someone in the chat says the bullseye exercise is what helped me identify how misaligned I was living before I made some big changes. And I hope it showed you that you can make changes, right? It's okay if we're on these outer rings. We're not like falling off the planet. We just go, oh, that's not where I want to be. How can we make some changes? This values worksheet comes from Kelly Wilson. This is also in the Ruth Harris big packet of worksheets. And it just has a lot of questions on it. You could give this as homework. You could use it as a discussion guide. You can make it a worksheet. I would encourage you to break it apart into smaller chunks because this is a lot. The top gives you more about what are values. Um, these are in your handouts. Look over it and see how they word it, right? We can learn from others how to better communicate this without being too jargony. But going through these, what sort of brother, sister, son, daughter, aunt, uncle, mom, dad do you want to be? What personal qualities would you want? What sort of relationships would you like to build? How would you interact with others if you were that? If you were the ideal you? If I was always patient and kind, how would I interact with others? I'd be a lot more confident. I wouldn't be worried that I might slip up and say something that I didn't mean. There's lots of questions here. Use as a jumping off point. Lots of different ways we can use this. And the life compass, you pick one value and you write it in the big section of the box. All these instructions are up here, but we're just going to real quick. This top little box, how important is it to you? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is like, must have this. 1 is, I don't really care. And then you do your present level. This is another one, like in the chat, she just said how misaligned I was. It can show us where we need to work. If a family fills this out and gives it to you, or you do it together, again, I like having something to do side by side to write on, to look at instead of just staring into each other's eyeballs. Then you can go, okay, this is what we need to work on. Community environment, they put it 10. They want to be out in their community. They want to get involved in their church, their little league, their YMCA, their PTA, whatever community situations they have. But the present level is at like a 2. All right, how can we work on our behavior goals in the community? How can we work on those component skills that lead up to being able to go out in the community more? This can help us identify what goals we need to be working on with families or ourselves. This is similar, just a different rating form. So we have all the domains. What's the value? What's the importance? The success. How are you doing right now? It's just a self-rating scale. And then the rank, 1 through 10, which one is the most important today? Another just self-assessment, self-rating form. Another way to look at it. You do not need to do all of these. I hope that that is inherent and understood and implied. You do not do every single one of these with one family. You do not do every single one of these with anyone. You pick and choose and figure out what's the best fit for each family we support, making sure that you've tried it on yourself first. and you can talk about it and understand it. The problems and values worksheet. Values are often described and act as the flip side of pain. That means one exercise we'll do is an index card or a post it note. Write something that's really bothering you, stressing you out, really painful. Pain sounds a little bit heavier. So I just say something as a parent that's really, really stressing you out lately. I'm really stressed out about my child melting down every time I tell them no. And I can never use the word no. I have to say yes to everything. Okay, let's flip that over. Why does that matter? Because I want them to succeed in life and be independent. And if you can't accept no, how are they ever going to be independent and make friends and all these bigger picture things? And the value underneath that is that you care about your kids' independence or you're a loving parent. The flip side of the pain is where we find the value because what we care most about is where the stress and the problems come from. So that's what this is, another way of looking at that explanation. What things do you get caught up in? What problems are you dealing with? What are some actions you've taken that were not so great, that were not on your going east, that were not on your valued direction, they were outside of the bullseye? And then what matters in the big picture and what can we do instead? The contrast, that opposition is where we really can find what matters most. Without even doing this worksheet or writing on an index card or a post it note, you can hear what a family is saying to you if you just ask, what is the biggest issue for you right now as a parent? And then as we get better and more practice in doing these sorts of things, we can find that flip side of what do they value. We already talked about avoiding rigidity, making sure that we're clear about this with our families. I like this explanation from Russ Harris that the Latin word core means heart. So courage means we do what's in our heart. Acting on our values takes courage. And that's a good thing because true success is living by your values. Um, let's get to our takeaways. How will you help your families clarify their values? Any other ideas for these values exercises? Or are your wheels turning about how to better align some of your parent training goals to families' values? So um, I'm going to stop talking at you. The third keyword is meaning. Amy just put in the chat, so write that down. And if you have time, share in the chat your response to these takeaways. I hope that you want to learn more about values, want to use values more. You can find more from me at parentingwithaba.org. Amy says there are values lists in the H Rasmus platform. There are lots of places to learn more and run away with this.
Leanne, thank you so much. That was so fabulous. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just
No,
wanted,
I was
in case
watching
someone
the
had
clock
to
like,
get to an appointment, I just wanted them to still get their CEU. But truly, just such a fabulous presentation. And I'm just thinking of the ripple effects. You know, when we started this webinar, we saw people from Poland and Canada and coast to coast in the US and all over. And to think if everybody just has one takeaway from this webinar, thinking about how many families can truly be helped will be amazing. So thank you so much, Leanne. I have one more thing to share if you don't mind stopping your screen share. And anyhow, thank you all for joining us today. If you want to learn more how H Rasmus can help your organization, feel free to connect. And thank you all so much for learning and growing with us. I will stop the recording in just a minute, but if any of you have additional questions, we will stay on as well. So thank you all so much. Go ahead.